you're asking depends on whether you want to talk about it or not. um, Hold on a second. There we go.
Bruh.
So, hey guys, yeah, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about gringos behaving badly. We're going to talk about entitled Americans, entitled foreigners, entitled people out here that, you know, again, it's nothing new. We're not talking about anything that's like a new phenomenon or anything like that. It's you know, it's been going on since forever. It's more about the fact that, well, you know, now that the tides are changing, things are a little bit different, you know, when it comes to the political spectrum and, you know, so many factors. Again, we're going to go deep into all that today. Well, things, you know, obviously it's affecting everything in general. You guys can see already the effects in your own countries. If you're right now in the USA, I'm sure things are a little bit different when it comes to things, yeah, when it comes to dealing with immigration, immigrants, and that whole thing. All right, 1 second. But anyways, but shout out to everyone out there. Welcome back to another show. You know, today we're going to be walking through downtown Guadalajara. Again, you guys can see the full videos and the full walks, you know, on my channel. When we went to visit Guadalajara last year, we were walking around and I took a lot of footage and I put it up on the channel. Just the walks, you know, besides all the other regular videos that I have on the channel here. But anyways, but yeah, things are changing, and you know, there's a lot of news out there, you know, fake news, real news, you know, all kinds of stuff. And look, I'm not making these videos or these live streams, you know, in order to scare anyone away from coming to Mexico. In fact, the complete opposite. You know, I want to make sure that you guys out there are making the right choice and the right decision for yourself. Because it's, you know, Mexico's not for everybody. And, you know, a lot of people right now, they're going through desperate times, you know, back where they're at. And, you know, there's many solutions for you out there. So, you know, don't just you know, go with the first option, and do research and just check, you know, and see what's out there. But look, at the end of the day, Mexico is the #1 option for Americans. You know, any, you know, person that's coming from the USA that is looking into relocating to another country, Mexico is the #1 option. And it's not just a #1 option for Americans, but also for Canadians and many people out there, especially these days, more so than ever before, you know, more and more so. And so, you know, out here in Mexico, obviously, the influx of Americans is not stopping anytime soon. There's only more and more of them that are going to be coming out here, including you guys. You know, that's why most of you guys that are watching are not even watching from Mexico. You guys are watching still from the USA or Canada. Because I know for a lot of people out there, you know, once eventually you move out to Mexico and you already kind of, you know, get your bearings straight and everything is you know, you know what I'm saying? Like you finally get your feet under you and you're settled in. Yeah, you're not really looking for my videos. You know, you're not really looking into my videos for more information or help because you're already here. And so that's the thing. And so, you know, you know, I know a lot of my audience, you know, for the most part, are people that haven't, you know, been to Mexico or, you know, are still, you know, considering into living in Mexico, moving to Mexico. And I'm just trying to give you guys, you know, the real view, the real perspective as to what life is out here. Mm. Well, anyways, with all that said, for example, I did a video a couple days ago where I was just basically trying to get everyone's attention to let everyone know about the immigration issue with Mexico that hasn't changed. Now, look, from my point of view, you got to remember, you know, you guys are out in the audience, but I'm out here making videos, and there's so many people that contact me on a regular basis for years on end already. Okay, so it's been, you know, kind of going on for a long time. And one of the most common questions that I get, believe it or not, especially these days, again, I get this question asked more and more each and every day, which is, you know, do I need a passport to come into Mexico? Do I need a visa? Do I need a permit? What do I need? How do I, you know, what can I, you know, how can I legally, you know, get into Mexico, or how can I just get into Mexico? And so the whole idea of like moving to Mexico, I mean, sorry, the whole idea of just coming into Mexico without a passport, with just a simple ID, well, that's been going on for a very long time. And as of, you know, recently, believe it or not, in some areas they've been asking for a passport. Again, we're just talking about the land border. If you're flying to Mexico, if you're flying anywhere, you're going to need your passport. Okay. But again, you got to remember that we share a border. And so the same thing goes with Canada. For people that live on the border, you guys know, a lot of you guys cross into the other country all the time. Sometimes you got that special license, or that special, I forgot what that license is, but it's almost, or that special passport, whatever, that's like a license and allows you to even cross, back and forth. But long story short, a good majority of my audience, still have no idea that not only they need a passport, but they need some paperwork, okay, when they cross the border, which is just a simple, FMM tourist permit. Long story short, it's not really anything crazy. But recently I've been hearing, just because of the whole thing with going on with both countries, the USA and Mexico at the moment, the tensions, and heard in some areas that they're now being a little bit more strict. But again, strict in what sense? That they're enforcing the law that has always been there. So look, again, you guys can go back on my channel for as long as possible. I've always been encouraging you guys that if you're coming out here, make sure you have your passport. Because look, yes, technically you can get into Mexico, and you can get deep into Mexico without a passport, or, or even a FMM, tourist permit or visa or whatever, right? But the point is that eventually, you're going to be needing an ID for something, for many things. And when you're going to like rent an apartment, many times they're going to be asking you for, hey, do you have an ID? Do you have a passport? That's the only ID that counts. And when you're trying to really live your life out here, eventually you're going to start realizing, hey, you kind of need you need an ID, and the only ID that is valid outside of the USA is a passport. So anyways, long story short, as things deteriorate in the USA, there's more and more people that are interested in living in Mexico, moving to Mexico. So again, this is why I gotta, talk about certain things that, in a sense, I know there's certain people out there in the audience that already know about, because, well, they've been living here and they take it for granted that at one point they didn't know jack crap. Okay. And, for a lot of you guys in the audience, well, you're learning about all this stuff, and you're learning about the fact that, yeah, if you're coming into Mexico, what is the proper procedure? What is a proper whatever? If you're driving into Mexico, if you're flying into Mexico, things like that. So that's just one thing. And in today's video, again, I know long-winded intro that had nothing to do with what we're going to be talking about today. But the reality is that in today's video, it's something that, again, we've talked about in the past, which is gringos behaving badly. Basically, not just gringos, I mean, not just Americans, also Canadians, and also other foreigners. But for the purposes of what we're talking about today here, we're just talking about Americans, okay? And Canadians, but mostly Americans, okay? But both, okay? Don't be thinking Canadians are nice. Sure, the Canadians might be nice in Canada, but I've met some Canadian Karens out here, and I was actually pretty surprised. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know Canadians could be just as bad as Americans. So, okay, and that's the thing.
Bruh.
In today's, live stream, we're going to be going more detailed into all that, because the thing is that there are cultural differences. There are certain things that maybe in our culture back home we put up with, but they won't put up with here. And even though for the longest time, because again, Mexico, let's not forget, Mexico is very welcoming. Mexicans are very nice, even though right now, most Mexicans are boycotting American products, even though some are still drinking their Coca-Cola and drinking and eating their American hamburgers. By the way, again, this video you're watching now is in Guadalajara, right? And I saw that there was an In-N-Out pop-up, or some In-N-Out restaurant that opened in Guadalajara, and there was a line, blocks, a line for blocks. It was a 4.5 hour wait to get an In-N-Out burger. And it was funny because it's like, the joke is like, yeah, we're protesting American products, American whatever, but at the end of the day, hey, In-N-Out is In-N-Out. So anyways, I thought that was pretty hilarious. So anywho's, but yeah, again, Mexicans don't take anything or anyone too seriously, and that's part of the cultural differences. Out here they're always laughing, they're always jovial. They might be even poking fun at you, only because they're expecting you to, again, return the fun. Hey, we're gonna make fun of you, you're gonna make fun of us, we're all gonna laugh and have a good time. If you're not able to laugh and have a good time, yeah, it's probably not gonna be good. So There's little things like that that a lot of Americans, that are out here, or Canadians, that are out here, again, they get, the cultural exchange, sometimes differs because look, there's a lot of us that are Americans and Canadians that are very nice and jovial and happy, and so we get along great with Mexicans, but there's, certain one of us, certain Americans and Canadians that you already know. I don't got to get into it. And, they come out here and all of a sudden they think that every Mexican is against them. The whole world is against them. And it's like, no, bro, it's just you. It's like, no, hey, it's just your attitude. Maybe turn that frown upside down. How about a smile? How about saying hi, please and thank you. And you're welcome, whatever, all these things. So it is what it is. And so, some people can learn, and roll with the punches, and they'll love Mexico, and some people they end up hating it because it's like they never ever get to, jump over that hump. But okay, so with that said, throughout the years, obviously, as Americans have been living out here, especially with the giant jump in Americans and Canadians that have been moving out here since, the whole virus situation a few years ago. By the way, I can't believe it's been 5 years since the whole virus situation. But anywho's, before 2020, basically there was like a million Americans or less, living out here. Probably, some Canadians living out here as well. I'm just, talking about Americans here, but there's around a million living out here. And then like after the virus, after 2020 situation, that jumped, to like 1.5, and I hear over 2 million now. And those are the legal ones. Okay. So the legal ones, like me and others out there, there's like close to 2 million already. And obviously there's more that are irregular out here or don't have their papers, or they don't have their papers right, or they're here on a tourist visa or whatever. So and again, that number is growing exponentially. So what is going on throughout the years? There's already been a lot of resentment, from certain Mexicans out there. Again, not all of them, not all of them. Again, small minority here. When it comes to like gentrification, even though a good majority of Mexicans are very happy with gentrification, a small minority are not. And that small minority has a loud voice, and then they make it seem like gentrification is not only bad, but on top of that, that it's the fault of Americans, the fault of Canadians, the fault of the gringo. And again, anyone that just does a quick, deep dive into this, it's really, it's the opposite, because again, the gentrification is being done by Mexicans in Mexico for the Mexican population. So what do I mean? Well, when a Mexican neighborhood gets, gentrified and becomes better, well, life for everyone there gets better. All right. And that's just the reality of it. All right. And sure, prices and costs go up in certain areas, in certain situations, but it's not always the case. Many times it's a really rundown, horrible neighborhood that nobody wanted anything to do with. And before you know it, the neighborhood becomes popular, gets gentrified, and all of a sudden now, some people that were living there when it was a place that nobody wanted to live, now all of a sudden everyone wants to live in that neighborhood. And so now, things are going to be more expensive, or whatever, more people, louder, whatever it is. And so for certain people, they get upset. But the majority of the people that live in a gentrified neighborhood, they're extremely happy, because now it's like, oh, great. Now we got people here again. Now we got business. Now we got traffic. Now we can make money. Now we can survive. Now everything looks prettier, and so on and so forth. All right. But again, in some cases, where, let's say in Oaxaca, they've raised a lot of the the property taxes. Again, very rare, because most property taxes in most of Mexico is like $50, $100, whatever. But in certain areas, like in Oaxaca, where they had corrupt government, they raised the property taxes. Instead of like $100, now it's $1,000, and that's a lot of money for a Mexican. All right. And so, and then obviously who they blame, they want to blame the gringo, they want to blame the immigrant. And so again, it's a small minority. Obviously, when tensions rise, okay, then all of a sudden that voice gets even louder. But look, the reality is that, again, I've talked about this many times in many of my videos. Look, the businesses are owned by Mexicans, okay? And they're raising the prices for everybody, okay? If all of a sudden there's, more Americans, more foreigners, Well, they're going to have things in English or in German or in another language, and they're going to try and capture that market, especially if you're in a touristy area. So it's the reality of the situation, and so you see this all over the world. It's nothing new. It's nothing crazy, and so all the business owners, a lot of the people that live in the area, again, most of the people are very happy with the change, but there's a small minority that are not happy, and then they got to blame somebody. So who do they blame? The immigrant. I mean, you see the same thing in the USA. Look, I don't want to downplay the immigration situation, okay, in the USA and in Mexico. It's having a similar situation. There's a lot of immigrants and a lot of bad immigrants, and both countries are trying to get rid of them. It's just the true reality of it, okay? But I'm not anti-immigration at all, okay? I am, again, my parents were immigrants. I'm all about America when it comes to the whole immigration thing, but again, do it correctly, do it right. Same thing as out here in Mexico. What was I saying about the immigration? I was saying something about oh man, I lost my train of thought. um all right, I need a little more coffee. No, my man, what was I saying? Maybe someone in the chat. I can't believe I lost my train of thought there. Oh, mm. Anyway, shout out to everyone in the chat. Shout out to everyone in the audience. Um, Jose Shaw says, do I search the neighborhood before walking there? You sound like you know what you know. So when we were walking here, again, we were on vacation ish, and long story short, we knew that we wanted to see certain, you know, uh, things in Guadalajara, and we're used to walking. So basically, we started off at a point. I did the map, I did the navigating since I'm more used to this, and basically, I was navigating me and the girls, and we were just going from place to place. And so, what you're seeing, there's a little edited, for the most part, but the reality is that yes, we had a path. We started off at like a cathedral somewhere on one end of the city, and we walked all the way across. We walked through El Centro, and then we walked to another part, and we ended up in a major market, Mercado de Abastos or something like that, I think. Or no, El Mercado de San Juan de Dios. Again, all these videos are on my channel if you're more interested in that. All right, let me see. Mm, Oh, the gentrification. Correct. Thank you. So yeah, okay. So long story short, here, just like anywhere in the world, the first group that they blame is the immigrants. So in the United States, I mean, come on, it's the oldest joke in the book. I mean, come on, South Park makes fun of it. Long story short, it's like the immigrants are taking our jobs. They're taking our jobs. The immigrants are this. The immigrants bad. The immigrant. Okay, so you hear that here too, just not as loud. Obviously, Mexico and the USA are two completely different countries, but long story short, it's during for certain moments like this, during the gentrification, obviously, the people that are really causing the gentrification, the Mexicans, the rich Mexicans, the business owners, whatever, the investors, the Mexicans, okay, they're the ones that are causing the gentrification. So long story short, they want to deflect they want to deflect the bad negative news from them, so they deflect it onto the immigrants. That again, most immigrants, you're not speaking Spanish, you're not watching the Spanish news, you're not really into like that deep into what's really going on. So you're the perfect target. Just like back home in the USA, just like in any other country, the immigrants are always a perfect target because it's like, again, they have someone perfectly to blame. And at the same time, the people that are getting blamed, they don't even know that they're getting blamed. All right. So obviously, as tensions rise, okay, with the US and Mexico, that certain small group of people, okay, that are already not liking, you know, uh, Americans or Canadians or whatever, they're all of a sudden, going to make that voice even louder. And some people might even start agreeing with them and so on and so forth. But again, I want to reemphasize that no matter where you go in Mexico right now, the majority, okay, a majority of Mexicans, 90% of Mexicans are just as nice, just as welcoming, just as loving, just as amazing as they've ever been, okay? Mexico is amazing. Mexican people are even more amazing. This is the best country. I love it out here, okay? But anyways, all I'm saying is that with that said, Okay, we cannot downplay that things. You know, we cannot sugarcoat too much. Okay, you know, sugar bad. Okay, too much sugar is bad. So, anyways, but long story short, the reality of yeah, it is. You know, there's certain people that are growing a little animosity or whatever. So, what do I mean? You know, in certain areas, okay, for example, like in let's say in touristy areas, you know, Cancun, Merida, Acapulco, whatever, all the touristy areas, okay, all over Mexico. Obviously, they're used to receiving American and Canadian tourists, and many times, just like any place on earth that has tourists, okay, many times they will side with the tourist. You know, many times it's like, hey, we're getting a lot of German tourists here. Well, we got to make it a little German friendly. Hey, we're getting a lot of Cuban tourists. We're getting a lot of American tourists, whatever. Okay, so you got to make it more friendly to that group of people. So obviously, you know, there's many places where there's more American, more Canadian tourists and stuff like that. And so you're going to see a more influx of those people in those areas. And so, it's not affecting the tourism at all. You know, again, the people are just as friendly, just as nice. Hey, come, whatever. But what's going on is that where in the past, you know, an American or Canadian or any foreigner, really, any foreigner, European, you know, they'll all of a sudden cause a ruckus. Okay, they'll start yelling at a Mexican. They'll start getting upset, you know, over some bull crap. Okay, acting like a Karen, you know, all that stuff. Okay, you know, meaning, you know, being rude to an Uber, or being rude in a bakery, or you know, on the street, you know, saying nonsense, you know, whatever. Okay, it happens, believe it or not. I know it sounds crazy. I've seen videos of an American like in the middle of Mexico, like in deep as you can get in Mexico, and he's just yelling at Mexicans like, oh, you guys are all dirty and nasty and horrible and this and that. And it's like, bro, what are you doing? Are you trying to get killed here? So anyways, you know, again, just think about it. Just like if like a Chinese person or a Mexican is in the Mall of America, you know, in Minnesota, and he's yelling at all the white people that they're terrible. You know what? Never mind. It's a bad example with everything going on today. Look, the point I'm making is that where before that stuff was a little bit more tolerated because they're trying to get that tourist dollar, they're trying to get those dollars, they're trying to get that money. It's not as tolerated these days anymore. In fact, you're actually starting to see Mexicans pushing back again, saying, you know what, we don't need your dollars, we don't need your euros, we don't need your bull crap. Okay, long story short. So no, so in touristy areas, you're already starting to see pushback, you know, from people behaving badly. Again, we're not going to tolerate this behavior. We're not going to tolerate your ass here. We're not going to take your money. We're not going to take. That's not. No, we don't want you here. In other areas, I've read, not read. I actually saw videos. Okay, Spanish YouTubers out there that were in the Tijuana area. Okay, there's one particular guy, and he did multiple videos, okay? And he was interviewing people in the Tijuana border area, you know, Tijuana all the way to Mexicali, you know, all that area, okay? And a lot of the border, you know, from, you know, basically Tijuana going east, okay? Um, and you know, talking to real estate agents, you know, talking to business people, you know, Mexican real estate agents, Mexican business owners, you know, Mexicans, right? And talking about exactly this situation. And they're actually so with the realtors, the business people were pretty chill. You know, a lot of the people were pretty still chill, you know, giving the politically correct answer, you know, whatever, you know, blah, blah, blah. But when it came to the realtors, that was really the more eye-opening thing. The realtors were saying, is like, yeah, no, I mean, right now, you know, in our area, you know, we're very, very, very strict when we're renting to an American, where, you know, in the past, you know, an American or a Canadian would show up and they would want to rent a place. All right. And that would be, you know, for a Mexican realtor, that would be amazing. That would be like the best catch because they knew that you know, the American or Canadian was going to pay on time. They came with dollars. They were probably rich, you know, blah, 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 blah. So most of the time it's like, yeah, you're the perfect tenant. You know, we love you. But now fast forward to where we are today, after so many crappy tenants, after so many, you know, tenants that have come out here and they've you know, destroyed properties, you know, left without paying rent. You know, what's the thing called when you don't leave the house? Uh Anyways, you know, like the people that don't leave the house, squatters, and I could go on and on and on and on. And then they're like, bro, these people are just as bad or worse than the Mexicans that we don't even want to rent to either. And many times, like they were saying that many times in the past when an American would come out to Tijuana or one of these areas out there, and they would want to rent a place in the $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 range. Okay, where yes, of course, anything, you're gonna where now it's like, nah, keep your money. You know what I mean? Keep if they got the vibe is off, or they don't have the right paperwork, or they don't have the right whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter how much money you got. They were saying like, yeah, they're not gonna rent. They're not gonna rent to you. So that's what I'm saying. It's like it's getting again. I don't know personally how that is going on because I haven't been dealing with that. I'm fine. I speak Spanish. Married to a Mexican. I'm in a different situation. But still. You know what I mean? Like, from my understanding, it seems that, like, I mean, again, from what I was seeing from so many realtors, again, on the border area, I don't know if that's realtors all over Mexico, but I wouldn't doubt it, especially after having so many bad experiences. Look, out here personally, I know of many Americans and Canadians that have moved out here and have done horrors to the poor, real estate agents. And by the way, I'm not a, poor real estate agents or anything like that. I know I show you guys houses and stuff like that in my videos, but no, I'm not into real estate. That's why I don't sell. I don't get involved. I don't do any of that stuff. Okay. I just show you houses because you guys like them and I like making the videos and they're fun and yada, yada, yada. But look, long story short, yeah, no, I trust a lawyer more than a realtor. Okay. I'll tell you that. All right. But anyways, so I'm not playing a violin for realtors, but I'm just telling you, what the reality is. And so, again, even for a lot of realtors, in many areas, and they're choosing not to rent to Americans, or choosing to raise the rent, or choosing whatever. And the thing is, it's like, for example, some of these realtors were saying, like, yeah, look, in some cases, we've had people that were renting with us for a couple years, and we had to raise the rent simply because, well, we had to raise the rent on everybody. It's inflation and yada, yada, yada. It's happening all over the world. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why people don't understand. And so long story short, and then all of a sudden, people getting upset, you know what I mean? Because they got to raise the rent $40, not $400, just $40, to, again, go up with inflation just like everything else. And I could go on and on. There's just so many things. And again, where okay, so another thing that a lot of Mexicans are also getting upset with is so many Americans or Canadians coming out here and constantly complaining about how things are expensive out here. It's like, bro, if it's expensive, go back home. Go back home, okay? If you really think it's too expensive, don't live here. Go home. Go home. It's if you think it's cheaper in Utah or Wyoming or wherever, go ahead. I mean, why are you wasting your time out here? And so I've made many videos on this before too. Yes, but at one time. By the way, Mexico's still very affordable, extremely affordable. I live out here in 1,500 a month, so it's still affordable. But the point is that a lot of people need more stuff and they have higher expenses and whatever. I get it. But all I'm saying is that at one point, many years ago, yes, Mexico was even more affordable and you can get even more bang for your buck. But as time goes on, again, we talked about this in depth, as the US dollar tanks, as the world economy, is going into shambles and all the things that are going on and yada, yada, yada. And Mexico's economy gets stronger and everything gets stronger out here. Look, it's going to get more expensive one way or the other. All right. And at one point, if you're moving to Mexico, you're not moving to Mexico to save a few bucks. You're moving to Mexico for quality of life, for a higher quality of life. Look, just like many people will be like, hey, I want to move to Switzerland. I want to move to, Norway because, the quality of life and the this and the that. And I know it's expensive. Okay. The same thing. I'm not saying that Mexico's going to get to that point, but you never know. I look at it like it's a, very high quality of life living out here. I consider life out here a lot better than living in the USA. Again, I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but for me, no way. You know what I mean? No way, Jose. You know what I mean? Are you kidding me? Life out here is extremely better in just about every category. In fact, I don't know what category the USA is better these days. I really do not know. Outside of them having Taco Bell, that's the only thing. And by the way, they've already had tried to have Taco Bells out here in Mexico, and they failed miserably every time. So I know that's one thing I'm never gonna get out here, and I'm willing to live without. But I mean, come on, In-N-Out Burger. I mean, we already got those in Guadalajara. I can't wait to visit next time. Like literally. That's the first place I'm going. Well, I'm going to the Mercado de Abastos to get my birria tacos and whatever. But the next day I'm going to In-N-Out for sure, 100%. All right. Anyways, I see Rocky Mountain asking me a question and saying, "Have I ever been to Mexico City?" Yes, I have multiple times. Great city. And I wouldn't live there, but yeah, a great place to visit. I know you've been to Mexico for a while now, and I was wondering if you have an interest in experience it, or if yeah, I liked it. I liked it. It's a great spot for me. I love to visit there. I would not want to live there. Well, I mean, because look, I come from the big city. I love the big city. I'm a big city guy, but man, I am not gonna lie. One thing that I do not miss from a big city is the pollution. And Mexico City is polluted. Look, even Guadalajara is extremely polluted. Air pollution because again, it's a ginormous city, so yeah, for me, I don't miss those things, but I could maybe, live in Guadalajara for a while, maybe, I guess, I don't know. But hey, the pollution, man, that thing starts to get you. And then, look, where I live right now in the Yucatan, there's very little pollution, when especially there's no air pollution out here, none of that. So yeah. All right, let me see. Let me see. But no, yeah, like, but yeah, Mexico City is great. Look, some people love Mexico City. If you love New York City, you love things like that, you'll love it out there. But look, that's another thing too, man. It's hilarious. Like I'll see, um, for example, I've heard of gringos behaving badly in Mexico City, where all of a sudden, there's people that go out there for work, digital nomads, or in fact, this time it was a model. This is like a year ago. And basically, she was complaining about the noise. And she put a TikTok video about complaining about the noise in Mexico and all this other stuff. And long story short, the video went viral and she had to leave the country. Like literally leave the country because the people were like, "What? You don't like it?" They found out where she worked and whatever, and then they just bombarded her with noise. And that's the thing. I mean, think about it. It's like if an immigrant comes to the USA or Canada and all they do is complain about the USA or Canada. Americans and Canadians are not going to put up with that. So it's the same thing, And so that, to me, that's the audacity, the entitlement that Americans have when they come out here. Canadians too, but this is more American. They'll come out here and they act like they own the country. They act like their presence is needed or wanted out here. No, listen, maybe many, many years ago, okay, that was the case. It is not the case right now at all. It has not been the case for a long time. And that is, the rude awakening that a lot of Americans have, or Canadians, but mostly Americans have when they come out here. Because it's like, yeah, no, again, you watching my videos, and you've seen in other videos, there's other YouTube channels that are, in fact, there's like a million YouTube channels right now of Americans or foreigners living in Mexico. And you see how amazing this country is. Okay, people living in the middle of the rural areas in the middle of nowhere, people living in Guadalajara, Mexico City, and it's like, wow, better looking cities and better cities than what we got in the USA right now at the moment. And I could go on and on. And that's the thing. And so for a lot of people, they see the writing on the wall when it comes to the USA and Mexico. Sorry, when the USA and Canada, and they're moving to Mexico. And so the thing is, it's like Mexico, even though with everything going on right now, Mexicans what is it? They can differentiate, they can separate, okay, the difference between just Americans, American people, people from the US, people from Canada, and their politics, okay? They can separate the two. So when they meet an American, they're just going to treat you like they treat everybody else. If all of a sudden you start spewing politics that they don't agree with, start saying, Trump is great, whatever. And listen, it's probably not going to end very well with a typical Mexican. Again, it all depends on who you're talking to. All right. Some Mexicans, still support Trump, believe it or not. So look, all I'm saying is that, right now, when you're in Mexico, yes, things are a little bit, tense, I guess, but not really. It's all up to you, the individual. If you're out here just living your normal life, if you're out here enjoying Mexico for what it is, if you're out here just being a good person, good human, you're not, listen, you got nothing to worry about. Most Mexicans, they don't care. They're not paying attention to the news that much. They really don't care. You know what I mean? For the most part, you might be able to strike up a conversation with someone about politics, and they'll just be like, you know, trying to ask you and understand what's going on over there. It's yeah, the people here are beautiful, man. They're awesome. It's a great place. And so the thing is that, if you're out here, look, okay, I'm gonna explain to you why I did this video. Look, a few weeks ago, okay, there was a guy from Spain, a Spanish dude from Spain, from Europe, and he was out here, living out here, doing, charity work, doing whatever. And long story short, he was staying in an Airbnb, and there was a coffee shop next to the Airbnb, and he, went to the coffee shop next door and said that the music was too loud. Now, listen, guys, you've been to coffee shops, right? Come on. How loud could the music be? All right. Anyways, long story short, he went back to the coffee shop and he started, demanding things and getting angry and fighting, started throwing things and being whatever. Anyways, long story short, they arrested his ass, and I think that they deported his ass. Okay. Or at least they arrested him, and he's, suffering severe consequences for his actions. All right. A couple of Americans, actually, an American and a Canadian, both in different parts of the area, one on the beach and one here in the middle of the city. But both of them, all of a sudden started to pick fights with their Mexican neighbors because there was a car parked across the street in their house. Now, again, if you know Mexico and you know how life is out here, by the way, if you live in any major city in the U.S. as well, you can, if you live in most areas, the street is public property. You can park on the street as long as, there's no yellow sign saying no parking. You can park anywhere. So again, the audacity of the audacity of the Canadian in the beach and the American here in the city that again came out and started yelling and screaming, demanding that they move their car. Listen, unless they're blocking an entrance, because again, the entrance to your house cannot be blocked. But other than that, unless they're blocking an entrance, you can park anywhere. In fact, literally, it's surprising when once you move to Mexico, you see people park literally anywhere. They'll park in the middle of the street. And so it's like, and then these people have been living here for almost a decade, and it's like, you've been living here a decade, and now is when you're choosing to all of a sudden get into. So anyways, long story short, in both cases, Mexicans did not put up with it. Both of them had to disappear. And I could go on and on, you know what I mean? So again, a European, a Canadian, and an American. So it's not, I'm not trying to single out Americans. But there's many cases like this. And for whatever reason, I've seen a few more in recent weeks, months. This is why I'm prompted to make this video. And I'm like, really? Now? There's more of this? And by the way, all of these have been caught on camera because most of the time, when the person's going crazy, they're filming it on the phone. The Mexicans in danger. So the Mexicans on the phone, like, I'm filming your ass. Yeah, that's another thing too, man. I love it when Americans, they're always like, "Oh my God, how dangerous is it out there in Mexico?" It's like, bro, you're the danger. You're the danger. You are the danger. Okay. In fact, I saw this man, this not live stream, this interview with an American lady that's been living here over a decade with her Mexican family and everything. She's an American. Big lady, awesome interview. You got to see this interview. I put it on the Facebook thing. But anyways, long story short, this lady, she said that, look, again, she came out here. She was living in the hood. This is a white lady, a big white lady. Okay, like you would never think in a million years, would speak Spanish or anything like that. Anyways, long story short, I'm trying to make this as short as possible. This lady, had to move back to Mexico because her husband got deported and the kids and yada, yada, yada. And she's living in the hood in Mexico City, and she has to go to work every day and come back, on the little bus, just living the typical Mexican poor life, right? Anyways, one day, again, this is like almost 10 years ago, she was coming home from work on that little tiny bus late at night. And as she was getting off the bus and walking home, they kidnapped her. They kidnapped her ass, right? And as she was in the car, and they're trying to kidnap her and they're trying to do the whole thing. She basically went full American, full, Rambo, and she kicked everybody's ass. Long story short, where they had to pull over and let her go. And they're like, the crazy green guy, and they were just screaming and they fucking left. Because again, they saw her as an easy target. Oh, she's American. She probably had money, blah, blah, blah. What is she doing in this hood? Little did they know that she's from the streets and she's from whatever. She was able to fight these people off. But look, I mean, I can tell you story after story after story, where it's like, yeah, no, we're the danger. We're the problem out here. It's like so. But yeah, I was listening to that and it was great. It was, by the way, it's a really heartfelt, beautiful story. In fact, you know what? I gotta show it to you guys, so you guys can check it out. And I'll put the link because I think you guys will like it. It's in Spanish. All right, so please bear with that. Okay, the fact that it's in Spanish, but they do have subtitles and all that stuff. Okay, so you guys can watch it in English because again, it's this American lady and she speaks perfect Spanish, which is great. Yeah, one second, guys, because I want to show you this so you guys can at least get an idea of what she looks like. I'm gonna give you the link so you guys can watch it too. Okay. Oh, sorry. One second. All right, so that's her. All right, and I'm gonna give you guys the link so you guys can watch, and that's the interview. But yeah, great interview. Like and you get to really see things more, more perspectives, more whatever. She's been out here basically 10 years, and the reason she came out here is because her husband was deported. And she lives out there. She lives with everybody. She's in the city. And her love for Mexico and the love that Mexicans have for her. And again, it's reciprocal. It's for both ways. You know what I mean? Like, again, you're gonna get a lot of love if you give a lot of love. Okay. But if you're coming out here and you're spewing the hate, the toxicity, all that stuff, okay, that you have at home, and you're coming out here with that stuff, oh no, man, people are not gonna put up with that stuff out here. No way, man. You're ruining the vibe. In fact, that's like a thing too. Is like, man, they're coming out here ruining the vibe. It's like, what? What's wrong with these people? They don't get don't they get the vibe? Anyway, it's like a joke or whatever. All right, where were we? Oh, Renato Diaz with the $20 super chat. Oh, thank you very much, brother. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't even see it. Thank you. I'm gonna buy 2 6-packs with that actually. $20 will buy me 12 beers, maybe more, 15 beers. So shout out to you. Thank you very much. In fact, I'm gonna need those beers because it's already hot. It's already 95 degrees out. I'm hanging out with the boys on Saturday night, and we're gonna need those beers and all that stuff. So thank you very much. Mucho appreciated. Thanks. Okay, all right, let me see. But anyways, yeah, shout out to everyone in the chat. I see there's a lot of you guys out there. My apologies. Keith says, thanks for the video on the visa requirements. Oh, glad I was able to help. I got a lot of hate for that video, and it's just because people were arguing semantics, and I'm like, man, the people that are arguing the semantics, it's funny because it's like, man, you guys are already taking this stuff for granted. You guys have already been in Mexico for years. You guys have already, blah, blah, blah. But at one point, you didn't know any of this stuff. All right. And it had to be explained to you this way. All right. Because I remember when I moved to Mexico, and I was like, what? I got to get a visa. How am I going to do this? And nobody told me nothing. In fact, I got lucky. You know what I mean? Like I said, when I was on the plane, and then eventually someone just gave me the papers. Yeah, fill this out. I'm like, oh, thank God. And it's like, come on, man. You know what I mean? Jeez. And so that's all I'm trying to do. So when I'm trying to say it's a, what is it, like a tourist visa, the reason I say it's a tourist visa is because that's what it's always been referred to since forever. And yes, technically it is a tourist permit, but again, also technically it's actually an extension of the visa, because the reality is that I gotta hate going through all this, but whatever. Anyways, Americans and Canadians have a special treaty with Mexico, and they're already pre-approved, okay, for a visa. Long story short, you don't have to go through the traditional route to get a visa, meaning you got to go to the Mexican consulate and go through an interview process to get a visa just to visit Mexico. No, you can just show up to the border, all right, and then you're already pre-approved because you're coming from, USA or Canada, and then they just give you a piece of paper saying, hey, are you declaring anything? Hey, how long are you going to stay here? Hey, this is just a formality. Thank you very much. Goodbye. See you later. In fact, the USA and Canada both have treaties with like hundreds of countries. Well, or like over 100. I don't know how many, like 150 countries, whatever, where they can do the same thing. Again, you as an American can go to many countries and do the same exact thing. Again, you're pre-approved for a visa, but you still got to finish the process with that little paper, the permit. Say, hey, why are you here? All right. That's all. It's just trying to clear that up and make it easy for people. And it's just like, man, it is funny to see how many people just want to hate. And it's funny, man. It's like, that's the things I don't miss from the USA. It's like, come on, man. Like on Facebook, how many people were hating on me? People that I know, but they don't like me for many reasons. And it's like, come on, man. What's wrong with you people, man? You know? Geez, get a life. Get a life. You know what I mean? Like, who cares? But yeah, long story short, you know what I mean? That's why, I made that little video because of everything going on right now. There's a lot of confusion with that. There's a lot of confusion. A lot of people are scared. It's like, oh my God, if I go into Mexico, are they gonna, hate me? Are they gonna kidnap me? Are they gonna rob me? Are they gonna gringo price me times 100? Are they gonna hate on me? No, they're not gonna. No, they're gonna treat you the same as long as you are nice, respectful, yada yada yada. Again, just practice human decency. Why do I gotta repeat this? Why do I gotta make videos on this? As long as you practice, just regular human decency. Oh, I just remembered. I know why I gotta say this. It's because a lot of people have forgotten, morals and just having, just being a normal, nice human being. But anyways, as long as you're normal, respectful, not polite, you follow your manners, do all that stuff, you had to do with grandma. Yeah, again, I forget. There's a lot of brats out there that grew up, you know what I'm saying, that didn't get a good chancletazo or a good belt. Again, I grew up in a Latino household. I grew up where it's like I'm not gonna be disrespecting no elders. If I called my mom by her first name, bro, I'm getting a smack. That kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Same thing that still happens today in most Latino houses and in many houses out there. But look, long story short, learning respect, learning morals, learning, to be nice and kind and polite and manners and, blah, 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 blah. And as long as you practice those things, you got absolutely nothing to worry about. But for anyone else out there that just does not know how to behave, I get it. I know. I mean, I was a cook. I was a chef a good majority of my career, my life, because I didn't want to behave. So I get it. I get it. I totally understand. In fact, that's why I live in Mexico too, because I don't want to behave. I don't want to be constantly told by the police and authority how I got to do things, when I got to do things, da 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 da. So again, I get it. But again, even being an animal, and acting like an animal, I can still be nice. I can still be good. I got a dog. He's a freaking animal. You know what I mean? But I've trained him, to be, behave and play well with others. Well, he doesn't play well with other dogs, but that's another story. But you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I don't play well with other humans either, right? It is. Okay. But look, the point is that it's just that. You know what I mean? It's just many things like that where, a lot of times people they choose not to behave. They choose not to, want to be good people. And then, obviously for many, they never really had to suffer the consequences. But that's changing, at least out here in Mexico. All right. And I think in a lot of parts of the world too. I think a lot of people just get it confused, with the get things confused with the whole idea that oh, I'm bringing dollars or I'm an American or whatever and I can behave and act however I want. And I see the locals, they're breaking the law, they're doing whatever. I can do whatever I want. Look, there's another thing too. When I was watching some of these interviews about Mexicans, talking about the state of things these days, they're also growing very tired of Americans and Canadians, but again, Americans that are coming out here and they think that there are no laws, there are no rules, and it's just pure anarchy and they can do whatever they want. Look, I know I'm a proponent of that. I talk about that a lot. I say that out here, again, it's very little rules, pretty much like anarchy, whatever. You know, the rules, I mean, sorry, laws are more like a suggestion out here, and they're not really enforced in many cases, not always, okay? And so I talk about that, but again, I also emphasize that just because, that's the way things are out here, it doesn't mean that, everything is, that people behave like animals. Because again, in a place like Mexico, which has very little enforcement of the very little laws and rules and regulations that they have, why are they able to keep the peace? And again, they got cartel wars, they got all kinds of horrible things happening in other parts of the country, but why are they all able to behave? Well, it's because again, they got morals, they got all these things that I was just talking about earlier. They know how to behave as humans. All right, maybe a lot of it has to do with the conservative upbringing in the church and all that other stuff. Okay, but with that said, um, why is it that in the USA, where there's rules and regulations and laws for everything? Again, you can't eat an ice cream cone in the park, unless you're standing on one foot, whatever. You know how it is. It's just like insane the amount of laws and rules and regulations, right? Yet, why does it feel like it's, crazy anarchy in the USA? I mean, you see it all the time, where it's just insanity how life is out there in the USA. And yet, out here, where there's very little rules and regulations and enforcement of all these things, why is everything more chill? Why do people behave? Why are things better? More cool? And I can go on and on. So, that's something that, I don't know, always kind of intrigues me about both countries. A country, you would think that the USA, being as strict as it is, that people would behave a lot more. But the reality is that they don't. Maybe they behave around authority and they're always, kind of leery or scared of authority, or, careful of authority, or behaving because of authority. But out here, people literally laugh in the face of authority. And out here in Mexico, it's not like that at all. It's more about they respect each other and they take care of each other and they're good and they're neighborly and they're community oriented and they got morals and blah, 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 blah. They see an old lady that needs help, they help the old lady. I don't know. But yeah, it's very different. But anyways, let me see. Let me see what other notes I got here. Hopefully, yeah, this thing keeps freezing up. Hold on, let me get rid of the video. Let me put this. Maybe this will be better. Yeah, I don't know why it's a little freezing back there. The image is kind of... Maybe it's already starting to get hot. Might be that. I need to get a little fan out here, for my computer. Yeah, because it's right now we're in that transition as to starting to, we're leaving winter and going straight to summer. Like a punch to the face out here, so. By the way, I'll take this chance real quick, all right, since I got a little break here. All right, guys, look, hey, I really appreciate you guys so much, all right? Again, if you like this kind of content and you want more information, you need more help with, moving to Mexico, please check out my channel, all right? Go to my channel, all right? And you're going to see all kinds of videos, okay, on all kinds of topics. Okay, and you can watch and learn everything for free. You don't have to pay anyone or anything for anything. So again, look, right there in the search, you see right there, right here in the corner. Wait, there. Am I pointing at it? There. Oh, right there, search. You can type anything. Let's say residency. You're wondering, hey, how can I get, residency in Mexico? Just type residency, and you get a bunch of videos on residency. Okay, easiest way to get residency. All right, that's what I would. All right. I will click on that one. But look, long story short, it doesn't matter. Whatever the topic is, gentrification. See? All right. So, all right. So long story short, go there and use that. Also, again, my website, tons of free information. Again, go right there, moving to Mexico, general information, and you got all kinds of specific videos to help you, again, whether it's how to find a rental, how to find a job, 20 of the most commonly asked questions, banking options. I can go on and on, all right? So, and if you want to help support the show, again, thank you for the super chats. Thank you for being members. Thank you for all the love and support. Again, shout out to all my patrons, all the members out there. But again, you guys can also go to the shop right there at the top, right above me, all the way at the top. See shop, click on shop. And I got all kinds of shirts. You know, I got Golfo de Mexico shirts, Gulf of Mexico shirts. I got shirts with my face on it. I got shirts with my art on it. I made this shirt. Yeah, that's right. I made that art. I know, it looks like a kindergartner made it, but whatever. I made it, and the wife said it was good, and she's an actual artist, so that's good enough for me to put on her shirt and sell it. Yeah, I know, I'm terrible. But anyways, but yeah, look, I got all kinds of shirts, and if you want to help support the show and you want something back in return, hey, you know, there you go. You know, you can get yourself a t-shirt, you know, with my face on it or some funny words or whatever, and you know, I get like $5, whatever. All right, and you get a shirt. Anyways, and all that stuff. And then again, please, guys, you know, actually the one thing I'm going to ask you guys as a favor, if you enjoyed today's show, if you enjoy everything on my channel, if you really, really, really want to help me out, go to my other channel. Go subscribe, please. We're so close. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers over there. Again, we go live over there every single Thursday. Again, once I'm done here, every Thursday, once I'm done with the live stream on this channel, I take a little break, about 20, 30 minutes, and then I go live over there, all right? And then, you know, we talk about whatever. We have so many topics that we talk about, but today's, again, we do story time, we do everything. But in today's video, hey, look at that. We're all wearing the same color shirt. How funny is that? But anyways, in today's video, today's live stream, you know, we're going to be talking about my life as a Z-list celebrity. Yeah, that's right. Okay, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. I got the paparazzi. I got the paparazzis after me. So I'm gonna put a link to that. But again, please, you know, you don't have to watch anything. But again, if you at least like the content here, you want to help me for free. Again, it doesn't cost you a dime. It doesn't cost you anything. You're already paying for the internet. So go check it out. And please, you know, there's the link. I have the link down below as well. And I would love it. Again, see, last week we talked about my own political compass. We talked about, you know, stupidity, idiocracy. We talked about taking the red pill, the blue pill, the black pill, the yellow pill. You know, all kinds of things. You know, story time. You know, when I lived in Seattle, when I lived in the desert, when I lived in, I don't know where else did I live. A lot of places. All right. When I worked as a cook. You know, all kinds of story times. All right. So go here where it says live. All right, and you guys can see all my stories. Look, when I used to be fat. Look at that. Look at how chunky. Look at that. Look at that chunky monkey up there. That's terrible, right? So, look, that drugs, you know, talk about all kinds of things. Uber. I used to Uber. That was interesting. So, look at that. Nothing's off the table. All right, so check it out. Look, that time I worked at a strip club. Yeah, that's right. I worked at a zoo. No, they were not in the same. Anyways, all right. But yes, please check it out. I would really appreciate it. And again, if you like this kind of content, you like this kind of stuff, but you know, this is more comedy oriented. This is just entertainment. This is just fun over there. You know, this channel over here, you know, on, you know, Living in Mexico channel, you know, I'm just telling you my life experiences, my life stories, all the information that I've learned throughout the years here. Again, I came out here with only $1,500 left to my name, and not only did I survive, but I thrived. And basically, I'll let you guys know how I did it. I kind of, you know, have the blueprint. Might as well share it with you guys for free. You know, look, my mommy didn't give me enough attention. All right, so this is why all I care about is for you guys to watch my videos. You know, I prefer that, you know, than for you to buy, you know, some package or whatever. You know, I'm not trying to sell anything except for crappy t-shirt. Please, if you want to buy a t-shirt, you know, go hang out of there. I got so many t-shirts. Look how many pages of t-shirts I got. All right. Just go, you know, anyways, but outside of that, that's all I sell. All right. I know. I put this all together. I've been actually on YouTube for 10 years, and my sole purpose was to grow an audience so big so that I can sell my crappy t-shirts. Okay, so please go get yours now before they, you know, run out. They're not gonna run out. Anyways. All right, guys. So yeah. Bruh. Let me see. Oh yes, I also do consultations. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So look. You guys have two options. For anyone out there that doesn't have any money, or you have, you know, a very limited budget. Okay. This is why I give everything away for free. Okay, you got no money, but you got time. So since you got time, and if you don't got time, you can make time. You got to figure it out, okay? But look, I'm helping you out, all right? So for free, for free. Or you can do again, you can come out here, watch the videos on my channel. Sorry, on my YouTube page. Go to my channel, watch the videos there, whatever. Dig through, search, find all the information for free. All for free. But if you cannot find the information, you might not be able to find the question, the answer to your question, or you don't want to waste all the time watching my videos. I'm long-winded. I talk a lot. I get it. You know, you don't got time. Time is money. You can hire me, okay, for, again, a paid consultation. Again, it's on my website. You get all the info right there. So you get personalized consultations, and for just $100, okay, that's a price right now. Okay, it fluctuates depending on the currency exchange, all right? Well, long story short, $100 a session, and an hour, okay? And that's it. You bring me your questions, I answer them for you. That's it. About anything, all right? Because yes, there are certain topics I can't talk about online, believe it or not. But anyways, long story short, this is a time saver for many people. They don't want to go through the, you know, again, all the pain and suffering of having to dig through my videos and watch my videos and go and sift through all that stuff. And listen, you can just, again, hire me real quick. You know, I used to do consulting, you know, for many businesses out there. So yes, I'll just let you know what you need to know and then some. Again, it's up to you. It's your option, okay? You don't have to give me nothing. Like I said, if you really, really just want to give me something, buy a t-shirt or send me $5. Whatever, anyways. Oh, wait, thank you, Eddie. Much appreciated. Yeah, I laugh when people say, oh, it's too expensive. Look, I get it. You know, it's too, for me, it's too expensive. I wouldn't pay that. I would just watch some videos because I'm a cheap bastard, you know? But I get it. You know, that's you know, I try to make it as affordable as possible. But again, at the end of the day, I got to charge, you know what I mean, for my time. By the way, I know a lot of you guys come out to Merida, and they're like, hey, I want to buy you a beer. I want to hang out. No, I don't got time, man. Time is money. Same thing. You know, so it's like, if you want to meet me in person and do a paid one-on-one consultation, we can do that as well. But it's also a price. And if it's $100 just to talk to me online, it's going to be a lot more expensive for me to go out there. Okay? Because now I'm going to waste more time. Now I got to, you know, spend Uber money, whatever. Okay? You know, now to go see you or talk to you or meet you or whatever it is, okay? So I know a lot of people want to buy me a beer and buy me dinner. I can buy myself a beer. I can buy myself a dinner. In fact, if you really just want to buy me beer or a dinner, you can do like Renato Diaz has done, or anyone else out there, and just buy me a beer. Like literally buy me a beer. Like in fact, you can go up there all the way at the top, buy me a coffee, buy me a beer. Look, you can buy me a beer. You really want to buy me a beer? You can buy me a 6-pack. You can buy me a 24-pack. You can buy me a case. You can buy whatever you want to buy me, all right? You want to buy me a keg, all right? But I mean, come on, you know, the whole idea of like, hey, I want to meet you, I want to see you, and I'll buy you a beer. It's like, no, man, I'm good. I'm good. A beer costs $1. I can get one, like literally walk down the street, less than a block, and I got cold beers, all right? Everyone I want. I appreciate it, all right? Or buy dinner. It's like, hey, I got it, man. I can afford my own, you know, $20 dinner. I appreciate it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But if you really, and again, because the thing is, it's like, I've already done this in the past many times, and people are like, you know, oh, I'm going to buy him a $20 dinner, and then I'm going to get the $100 consultation fee. It's like, no. Okay, because like I said, to meet me in person, it's already over $200, all right? You're going to meet me in person, all right? Again, no one has to pay for nothing. All right, at all. Okay, it's all free. I give everything for free. All right, but then, you know, there has to be prices on something. There has to be, you know, limits to everything, right? Okay. All right. I'm glad most of you guys agree, and I'm glad most of you guys get it. And for those that don't, hey, you know, it is what it is. I get it. I understand that too. So, Luz says, can I hire you or your friend to help me with the RNE visa? I do not do the RNE visa, but Jose Novello does. He takes care of all that, no problem. Okay. So if you want to get the RNE, again, look, in this case, you go to my website where it says living in Merida, Yucatan, helpful information. It's in both, in general information as well, but we got also separate information for here. And then right here, Mexican lawyer, Jose Novello, there's his email, okay? And we've done videos. He's a lawyer. He explains everything in detail. But anyways, reach out to him and he'll be more than happy to help you get your residency, 4-year temporary residency. Okay, so, and again, if you need a home, if you need whatever you need, that's what he's there for. Renato Diaz says, I'd like a shirt that says long story short only, and with you as a character and the gizmo in the face. All right, well, it's gonna take a while to make something like that. Man, it took a long time to make this t-shirt, but I'll look in, because I got long story short, I moved to Mexico. So you guys want one that says long story short with my face on it? Is that what you want? Or only Renato? You know, I'll look at it. I'll write it down. All right. All right, sorry. I'm writing down the... And a horrible dead air content here. All right, that's why I got the music in the background. All right. I got it down. All right. When I get time, hopefully within the year. No. I'll try to do it. Bruh. But within the year, I'll try to get that squared away. All right. Let me see. Anything else? Anyone else in the comments? If you guys have any questions, by the way, if you want to ask me anything, go right on ahead. You got me here for a few minutes. But shout out to everyone out there. Oh, no more coffee. Boo. I need coffee. Blech. I need coffee. All right. Ron says, has there been any talk of cracking down on perpetual tourism there? No. There has been mention here that the government down there is going to start doing that in retaliation for the... No. The complete opposite. Again, all they're doing is that they're enforcing the laws that are already in the books. But they're not, they're not doing that because, they're not going after, well, how about this? Perpetual tourism, meaning that you've been here for years. You've been in Mexico for multiple years. And all you do are border runs and you still don't get residency. Yeah, kind of, sort of. They are cracking down on that. And what they want is simply for you, okay, out there to get your residency. That's it. But if you're out here and you still do not qualify for residency, okay, and you can only qualify for the visa runs, they're not cracking down on that. They're only cracking down on the fact that, again, they know this because they see you on the computer, they see you on your passport, how many entries and how long you've been in Mexico. And so long story short, yeah, if you've been here long enough for you to go and get your residency through the R&E program, oh yeah, they're starting to get strict on that. But that's not a bad thing, because all they're doing is they're forcing you to get your residency, and they're making it easier to get your residency. Now, the caveat, okay, is that, again, as we talked about a couple months ago, when they renewed the R&E program, they've raised the prices substantially. And people are asking me, hey, do you think that they're going to keep the program going forward? Yes, they are, because they want money. They want the money, okay? That's it. They made it very evident, okay? So what you can be expecting is that, yeah, they're gonna have the program going forward, okay? Again, we never know really until whatever, but you can bet most likely that they are going to keep renewing the program, but you can also bet your bottom dollar that they're going to keep raising the price, okay? And it's going to keep getting more expensive to get that same residency. So yes, they want to keep that going, that's just money. Why would they not want, why would they want to stop that? And again, they know that most Americans that are coming to Mexico, and they want to get their residency here, and they want to live here. Listen, it's because they don't want to live in the USA, and they're not going to be the ones that are out here, Look, if you're making America great again, you're in America, okay? It's simple as that. Anyone that's most likely supporting Make America Great Again, Trump, whatever, again, power to them, all good. They're going to be in the USA, most likely. Not here, okay? Out here, most likely are going to be the ones that are not supporting the current agenda or the agenda, period, okay? Like me, I have not supported the agenda for a long time, decade, all right? So it doesn't matter who's been president. It doesn't matter. I don't, I'm an equal opportunity hater, okay? Of the current agenda, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who's in there. But anyways, with that said, yeah, you know what I mean? If you kind of have the same sentiments, in fact, Mexico is more fully aware of that situation. So of course, they know that there's there's going to be a bigger influx of more Americans coming in. And again, that these Americans, are going to be, they're going to be all about Mexico. Okay. And it's all money. So yeah, no, they're supportive of all that. So my estimation. In fact, that's another thing too. A lot of Mexicans are already fully aware that most Americans that are moving out here are poor. That's it. It's as simple as that. You guys are a bunch of bums. I'm a bum. You know how it is. But it's not like how it was before, where any American that came out here. Look, I remember when I was out here and I was dirt poor, and they saw that I was dirt poor, and they still thought I was a millionaire or rich. And I'm like, bro, what do you? Now it's, they're pretty, now a lot of times, they'll look at American and they'll be like, look at that broke ass motherfucker, trying to live rich out here. So now a lot of times they'll look at, you as the broke, whatever. So most Mexicans are already aware that a lot of us are out here, escaping or broke or whatever it is, escaping the financial situation, escaping the political situation, escaping the toxicity of the country, escaping multiple things. It doesn't have to be just one thing anymore. Where again, years ago, I remember I used to tell Mexicans why I moved to Mexico, and they thought I was crazy. Nowadays, they're like, oh, okay, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like most Mexicans are like, yeah, I get it. I know why you're leaving. It's totally understandable. Again, it didn't matter whether it was Biden in there, or Trump or whoever, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. Most Mexicans already kind of figured it out. So I think that's it. So let me see. There are no more notes. I think we got everything taken care of. We talked about everything. That's it. All right. So okay. Yeah, the fees are very high. Yeah, I don't know. Let me see if I still got the fees here. I think I got the fees. If I got them, I'll show them. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. I got them. I can't really see it, but it's on the screen. How can I zoom in? Oh, there we go. Okay, so let's see. What would it be for the R&E program? Yeah, so these are the new prices for now. I think it's this one. So okay, I think right there. I think it's so just to get the card, I think is just it's over like $600 already. Wow, that's expensive. Yeah. Yeah, just to become a permanent resident. So just again, once your 4-year temporary resident is over, you qualify for permanent residency. And look at that, the permanent residency is like almost $800. That's kind of crazy. Wow, I did not pay that. And that's just that. There's other fees, obviously. Wow. Okay. So yeah, I mean, yeah, probably close to 1,000, I would say. Yeah, sounds about right. Hmm. Yeah, I think it's I think just the basic fee is the so I think it's this one right here. Expedition, that all the way to the other side of the screen there. So the 4 years, that's at 12,529 pesos. But again, there's other fees on top of that. So interesting. All right, well, whatever. All right, guys. Well, with that said, leaving you with the fees. So start saving. Start saving that money. Start saving those dollars, all right? Bruh. Okay. All right, guys. I think we're going to wrap this bad boy up. So, Yeah, exactly. The R&E, yeah, so that's the thing. So they're going to get you one way or the other. So the R&E program is great for people that cannot prove financial solvency, but at the end of the day, they're like, look, we don't care if you can prove it or not. You know what I mean? It's going to cost you money. So you make it happen. Because, you know, a lot of people are like, hey, I got like a lot of money in Bitcoin, and they don't accept, you know, my assets, my Bitcoin assets. You know, they want to hear like they want to see a bank statement or this or that. Look, at the end of the day, they don't care. You know, at this point, it's like, listen, you know, we don't. If you don't have bank statements, you don't have this. We don't know where you got your money. We don't care. This is how much it's gonna cost. All right. Thank you. Come again. All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here. So, all right, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate today's, I really appreciate you guys. You know, I hope you guys enjoyed today's live stream. And again, we're gonna see you guys over here. Oh, sorry, not over here. Where was it? All right, we're gonna go on Jose Unleashed. We're gonna go live really soon. All right, see you guys there in about 30 minutes. We're gonna be talking about my life as a Z-list celebrity. All right. So again, if you want to have some fun and laugh a little bit, we're gonna go over there. By the way, I'm sorry if it's a little jittery on the live stream. I think it's something with the internet. I just saw something here, so I think it was the internet more than anything else. It's just hot. Who knows what it is? But anyways, hopefully you guys could, you know, were able to hear me and see me and all that good stuff. And again, shout out to all the new subscribers out to Unleashed. Again, if you really want to help me out here, go over there, subscribe. I'm gonna give you a direct link to the live stream, and I'll see you guys there in about 30 minutes. So, oh, what did I do? All right. All right, guys. So you already know the deal. I really appreciate you guys. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to please like, please subscribe, please share. I'll see you guys here on Sunday. See you guys here on Thursday. And I'll see you guys over there in about 30 minutes. So thanks again for all the love and support. Thanks again for hanging out with me today. And love you guys. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.